So for today, we are starting with this. Why? Because it was on last night's Schoology quiz and a lot of kids got stuck in it. Well, some of you probably made it past and you would have known at least what's the next step in solving this. You know what to do next? Yes?
I think you would add 3 to both sides and then factor.
You are correct. Add 3 to both sides because if you can factor it, you should. And to factor it, you need to set it equal to 0. And greater or equal to 0 is also equal to 0. And so then you factor it. Everybody get this far. And then we'll see what to do. Got to be able to handle quadratics. They're the most common function that we will handle. Because frankly, it's a little too easy when things aren't squared. All right. If you start with this, then you got to be thinking, okay, what multiplies to 3? Well, it's got to be 3 and a 1. But I need a negative in the middle. So -3 and -1. Raise your hand if you had that one right. Good. Then do you know that 3 and 1 are important at least? Do you remember me saying that you should, whenever you're trying to find answers to something that has an arrow in it, it's like an arrow tip, that you should be using a number line. It helps you to see the answer. I said always do it as a number line first. Then you can make it into like a interval notation or something like that. So may everybody please make a number line and mark where 1 and 3 are. And why did I fill them in? Or equal to. And they're answers that work. Good. What do you mean by works? People don't get what that means. What do you mean 3 works?
It's not allergic to it.
You can plug it in and it doesn't kill the function. That's true. But not just that. It doesn't just kill the function and it makes this true. Do you get if I put in a 3, it makes it greater or equal to 0? Because you'll have 0 times anything is 0. 0 is greater or equal to 0. So yeah, 3 worked because of that. And 1 works also because when you put in a 1 in those 2 spots, also you get a 0. Okay, but what's the rest of the answer? Because I know there's a range, because look, it says greater than or less than. That means there must be a range of answers. All right, I'm going to give you, would you agree that it's probably shaded somewhere? Okay, now, these parabolas, because of how they're shaped and because of what's really going on, they're either going to be on the outside and shaded this way, or they're going to be shaded in between here and here. It's one or the other. It's either both outsides or on the inside. And let me explain why. Some of you will get this because you like the math and you want to know why these things work. Others of you just won't care. Tell me how to do it. And I'm okay with either of those things. I'd like it if you were interested. That's a parabola, isn't it? And I know some things about it. Would you agree I know the x-intercepts from this? And I know the y-intercept, which is where, what is what? Y-intercept is where what? X equals 0. So the y-intercept is 3. If I just go over and make a sketch of that quick, a lot of things become more clear. The y-intercept's 3, and it touches at 1 and 3. And so, oh, it must be a parabola that looks like that. Do you get that? Okay, now why do I care what the graph looks like? Because I want to know where it's greater than or equal to 0. One of my best tips for this class is if you can factor it, you should. Another biggie, clear fractions out. If you got fractions, you should clear them out. I don't have any fractions, and I already factored. Here's my third, and I haven't said this to you guys before, so it's a big moment. Graph both sides and see where they cross. Whenever you have a complicated equation, you can graph both sides and see where they cross. Well, I just graphed the y equals the one side. Now I'm going to graph y equals 0 for the other side. Y equals 0 is this line. Where is the blue parabola above the red line? Out here. Do you get that it's the outsides that are going to work? because the blue parabola is above, greater than the red line 0. They're greater, the blue parabola is greater than 0 there on the outside. So now I know it's shading on the outside, but if you didn't understand that, I get it. Maybe that's too much for some of you. Some of you aren't the visual types. Everybody can take a number like 4 and just see if it works. Would you all please plug in 4 into this equation and then figure out what you get, and is that greater than or equal to 0? Try it. Nico, what did you get when you put in a 4?
I got 1 times 3.
1 times 3 makes 3, so is that greater than or equal to 0?
Yes.
Yes, so it works. See? I know it works out there. I wouldn't have even had to draw my parabola through this and know that it has to be above 0. The parabola needs to be above 0. That would have worked, but the other part is over here. And I know that works, but let's just test it. If I put in a 0 goes here, a 0 goes here. Negative 3 times negative 1 makes 3, and 3 is bigger than 0. Cool. It for sure works on the outside. Can you believe that that is just part of the domain problem on the last question of the Schoology quiz? And then you had to have the domain of the inside intersected with all that. In the middle of a pre-calc question, you have a inequality that's got a quadratic in it. Yeah, that's why honors pre-calc is hard. You have to know like lots of stuff. And this was just one part. This was finding the domain. So then you'd have that domain that I just showed you, which was, what are those two things? 1 and 3, and then it's like this. That domain overlapped with whatever the domain of the inside was, and you got to see where it all overlaps. Okay, so in the end, that was part of problem. What was the last one on the Schoology quiz? Do you remember? 6, I think. Yes.
How does 0 work?
How does 0 work? Do you mean like the number 0? How does it work in this function?
Yeah.
Okay, let's talk it through. So I put in a 0 here. Would you agree that that comes out to negative 3? If I put a 0 here, would you agree that comes out to negative 1? What is negative 1 times negative 3? Ah, there's the light bulb came on. Positive 3, and therefore greater than 0. Okay, cool. All right. So my point is this class is tricky, and this class is like gonna be involving pain here and there. Like, I don't get how this works, and if it doesn't involve any pain, then it's probably too easy for you. There might be 1 or 2 kids in here where this class is going to be too easy for them. There's going to be plenty where it's just right, and there's going to be a few where it's too hard. I'm not saying too hard like you can't do it, but you'll have to make up for that by lots of work. All right? So, it's just how this, it just makes sense that I can't teach every single level at the same time. So there's going to be some people who this is just like really, and I think there were some people where it was just too hard, and they've already moved. They've gone to regular pre-calc. So those of you that remain, how do you make up for it when it's really hard? You spend more time and you figure it out, and you come in the morning and get help. I did have a bunch of kids here this morning. It was fantastic. A lot of them were asking me questions, even like the one we just went over. And if you're stuck, please utilize the fact that there's less people now. For a while, there was like 28 people coming in. There's less people coming in, so I have more time to talk to you. So if you want help, what days is it? Mondays and Wednesdays and Thursdays. But Wednesdays are by invite only this time. You gotta make sure that there's room. All right. And so far, I haven't had to say no to anybody on Wednesdays, but I was close this last Wednesday because there was a lot of people. Let's see if you really got that. So I'm going to give you one more. Ready? X squared minus 9x is greater than or equal to, let's see if anybody's psychic. What number do you think I'm going to put here?
3.
Don't think 3 would work because it wouldn't end up factoring at the end. Somebody say 4? Okay, if I move a negative 4, 4 won't factor, won't make it factor, so nope.
9, negative 9.
Close. 10. And there you go. Solve that one. involve a number line, and I know that because it says greater than or equal to. That means there's a range of answers. This is called a quadratic inequality, and they're not easy. Do you think that you could be just as happy if I moved you one seat forward? It would help me understand so that
I'm doing the interval rotation as well. Yeah, that looks great.
Okay, compare with the kid next to you. See if you got the same intervals that work.
Where's the cookie knife? Oh, he doesn't specify. The problem doesn't specify any of that.
Would you agree there's only one way to factor it? Okay, and then therefore 10 and negative 1 must be important, right? Negative 1 would make it equal 0, and does that work? Yeah, because I can see it's or equal to. So negative 1 is one of your solutions, and I fill it in. It works. I tried it. I end up getting 0. And then I put in 10, and it works, and I tried it. And then I should really test a few other things. But if you're like me, you might be thinking, well, it's a parabola, and it must go like this, and the other line is 0, which is like this. And you might just go, well, where is it above 0? Well, definitely above 0 there and there. Raise your hand if you had that one right. Cool. If you didn't test intervals, then you could try, or sorry, if you didn't like just do it by graphing, you could test intervals like sticking in 11. I stick in 11, and 11 plus 1 is 12 there, and then that's going to be positive also. Positive 1, positive 12. Multiply them, they're positive, they're bigger than 0. It worked. And you could try negative 2, and you'd find out that it was 2 negatives, which came out positive, and therefore it worked. Okay, I feel like you've got quadratic inequalities down. Do you feel like you've got quadratic inequalities down? Okay, good. That is one of the hardest things on the ACT, just so you know. Not saying it's the hardest, it's in the group of the hardest things on the ACT. I do a lot of ACT tutoring, and I'm tutoring a kid right now from Arizona, and I could put that problem out, and I can almost guarantee they're not going to know how to do it. And it is one of the things that's on the standards for the ACT, and so I can help them understand that so that if that problem comes up, they're good. And it doesn't take that long to show you. All right. Yes?
Is there typically stuff above pre-calc level?
No. It's just some pre-calc classes don't go as high as ours does go pretty high. And so we get to the complicated pre-calc. So some people would say there's stuff above regular pre-calc, but that's what we do in honors, right? So pretty much what we do in honors, that's as high as ACT goes. All right. Well, you're supposed to learn something that just looks really weird, and let's see if you can do it without my help. Would you just try f of g of 2 here? If you understand how these things work, you should be able to piece this together. The only hint I'm going to give you is that 2 is the input into the g function. See if you can figure out what f of g of 2 must be. Don't say it. Write it, and then wait till the other person's done and compare answers. All right, would you agree g of 2 is an important part?
Yeah.
Well, let's figure out what g of 2 is. 2 is the input. You know, that's where x goes, right? Like g of x. So they're really saying x is 2. X is 2 in the g function. So here we are in the g function, and we're putting in input of 2. There's the answer, and it was, the output was 3. 2 comma 3 was on this graph, so the output was 3. So that's 3, and now we do f of 3. 3 becomes the input on the f function, which is right here. And so I go up there, and then the answer for that is also 3, because that's at 3 comma 3, and the input was 3 and the output was 3, and the answer is 3. Raise your hand if you had a 3. Okay, good. Now this next one, with having talked that one through, I bet you can nail this one. G of f of 1. Pausing. Hearing a lot of people say 0. I will check it for you quick. F of 1 is 1 goes into the f function, and I get 2. G of 2. G of 2 goes in, and I get 3. And then I got to do g of 3. And that means it's right there, and the output is 0. Yes. Okay, moving on. This hardest formula that you have to know, and it's a formula for finding, well, I want you to tell me, would this have been f of g of x, or are they finding the domain of different color g of f of x? Is it the red one, or is it the blue one? You can know for sure what this is. Yes. What say you, Leah? It is the red one, you are correct. And what was your clue? What was your tip-off? This is supposed to be the inside one, therefore it must be on the inside, and therefore it must be the red one. You're right. Okay, now we don't even need to find f of g of x. They just want the domain of it. So here's your two functions. Here's f of x and its domain. Here's, oh wait, I did circled that wrong. I'm sorry, I'm going to try erasing that again. It's, here's f of x and its domain. And then here's g of x and its domain. Now just do the yellow one. We're skipping the pink one for now. I'll pause for a minute. You try that one and compare with the kid next to you. Okay, let's see how you did. The domain of G. So here's G, and here's its domain right there. So I want x is less than or equal to 0 intersected with G of x, which is this function, 2x minus 7. Wait, just let me explain this on the board, okay? 2x minus 7. And that's got to go into the domain of f, which is this one. So that's got to go into a greater than negative 10. And this got a little messy, so let me erase this. So then 2x greater than or equal to negative 3, x greater than or equal to, is it greater? No, it's not or equal to. I'm making that up. It's just greater than. And greater than negative 3 over 2. And then it goes, that gets intersected with that, and I strongly recommend number lines. So often kids try to do it in their head, and they're like, oh, I can see that's between those two. It isn't always what you think. Here's 0, less than or equal to that. Making sure I said that right. Yep, it says or equal to there. And then here's negative 3 over 2. You could say negative 1.5 would be fine. 1.5 would be better. And then I have an empty circle, and then I'm shading bigger than that, so there we go. Raise your hand if you had that one right. Awesome. Okay, feeling like you've got those down, so we can even go over this next one, which is more practice on that, because I think you got this. The only thing that you'd have to do before you even started was it didn't tell you the domain of G. Would you just do the domain of G? Because then I think you'd be able to do it. But frightening number of kids just forget, like, how do you do domains again? They don't give them to you. How do you get them? Six x minus 3 greater than or equal to 0. 6x greater than or equal to 3. X greater than or equal to 1/2. Who had that one right? Good. Then the rest of it is just following that formula. If you got that wrong and you want help, come in the morning on Monday. I'll help you. Okay. You could also watch the video that I recorded on it. That would help. Okay. Decomposing a function. That's the new thing. You're not ready for this yet. Let me explain it to you over here. So, would you agree that Jeopardy, that's that famous game, they give you the answer to the question and you have to figure out what the question was. If I just said the answer is x equals 7, isn't there like a million different equations that could have led up to that? Okay, but what if I said f of x is 7 and g of x is, oh wait, I gotta have an x there, x minus 4, and then I made a composition of functions and said f of g of x. Well, actually, let's let you do that. Let's see if you remember how to compose a function. And then we'll decompose it. That's what this is. Decomposition is undoing compositions. So the f function ate the g function. Here's f. All right, 7, and I end up with an empty parenthesis, and now I put in x minus 4. Who had that one right? Okay, good. You're following me. Then what if I had said, here's the answer. What was the question? Now, you might have a short-term enough memory to just know what it was, but do you get, you could kind of piece together from looking at the answer, oh, g of x was the one that got eaten. So it's probably in there. And so therefore, g of x must have been x minus 4. And f of x, it's a little harder to visualize, but think it through. I need to have the f function eat the g function and have the answer be this. So it must have been 7 times x. Does that make sense to you? Now, this is one of those where a lot of times kids are like, I don't get what you're talking about until we do a couple of them, and then all of a sudden it snaps in and you're like, oh, that's easy. So let me give you a couple. What if I had a function that was f of g of x, and when it was done, the answer was 1 over the square root of x plus 5. There's actually 2 different ways this could have gone down. The way I would start is think, what was probably eaten by what? And then go, which part was the part that got eaten? Oh, I can do it this way. And by the way, there is more than one right answer for this. Tell me what g of x could be, and there's more than one right answer. And then what would f of x have to be to go along with that? Pausing while you try that one. Okay. I would be thinking in terms of maybe this got eaten by the other thing. Or maybe this whole thing here got eaten by the other function. Either way would have worked. But when you do pull out part, it's got to include any x's that were in the first function. Because otherwise, do you get we never have functions where there's no x? It has to have an x. So if I'm going to pull something out, it has to have the x part in it. So I'm going to pull out square root of x plus 5. And if I do it that way, then the other one would have had to been 1 over x. Who did it that way? Cool. Show me the other way. Sylvia. Do you have the other way?
Yeah, I did x plus 5.
Wait, stop. So you said this could be, just pull out x plus 5, and that's the thing that got eaten by the other function. And then what would the other function have to have been?
And then 1 over the square root of x.
Yes. See how that would have worked also? How many of you feel like it's snapped into place? You've got this. This isn't that hard. Good. Okay, we'll do one more. What if I said g of r of x, on purpose switching up what letters we're using so you don't think it's always f of g of x, came out to the square root of 4x minus 9. What was r of x and what was g of x? And there's more than one right answer. Pausing, while you try that one. If you're feeling like this is too easy, then give me 2 ways it could have worked. I think there's 3 ways it could have gone down, but one thing at a time. Find one way. If you're feeling extra, find a second or a third way. Okay, if you haven't already, compare with the kid sitting next to you. See if you found at least one way alike. So tell me a way that would work. Well, wait, start with r of x. That's the one that got eaten.
Yeah,
4x minus 9 totally works. And then the other one would have to be square root of x. Good. Would you have handled it if I said x to the 1/2 power? Just side note, want to remind you, that's square root of x. Because remember that fraction powers exist? And the square root one looks like that. It's the same exact thing. This and this are the same thing. Okay. Can somebody give me another way that this could have gone down? Martin.
Yeah, I had R of x is equal to 4x and then g of x is equal to
Wait, just 4x? All right, so that's what's different than last time. Is if you just say it's 4x, then that part gets pulled out, and the other one would be square root of? Yep. Cool. Anybody think of a third way? Sylvia?
So r of x is the square root of 4x minus 9.
Wait a minute. The whole exact same thing as it was in the first place? Yeah, I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just making it clear. Okay, so you're saying that r of x is that, and the other one must be x. So if we ever have a decomposition question on the test, we would not allow this because it would work every single time, and it's just like super easy. So it's kind of a cheat mode. If you just say g of x equals x, then the one that got swallowed was the whole thing. So yeah, that works. It's not wrong, but we will not allow it on the test. Yes?
is there going to be allowed to be different answers to the same?
Definitely. There's multiple different answers on tests, but this is just, I think you get that this would make it into a no-brainer. So we won't allow that answer, but you can have other multiple answers. Okay, now this is a stretch. I can't believe that our first slide on decomposition is this one, but if they say that this was the function g of h of k of x, then what got swallowed first? K of x. And they tell you k of x is x minus 4. That was k of x. Then what it was h of x had to have been, and then therefore what was g of x. And don't say x, because you can't allow, we're not going to allow g of x equals x, otherwise it's too easy. Find the way. Pausing for a second. All right, clarifying. This whole thing, I'm going to highlight it. That whole thing is the answer. I see what you're saying. I do. I understand now. We're just going to get rid of that and say that is the whole thing. The whole thing is 7 over square root of x minus 4. So that should be up there. Now, what they're really doing, the teacher wasn't wrong in writing that there. They're saying that f of x is all of this. Those are equal to each other. Like that is that. It was a new function that was made up of 3 other functions. So, but it was confusing, so I wish they would have just not put that there, and instead put that there. All right, let's just get to an answer. Let's go with Jada. What did you say h of x
Which one
was?
do you want? First one.
Which Jada or which
No,
answer?
which answer?
Oh, h of x, please.
Well, there's 2, but.
Oh, okay, give me a way that worked.
7 over root x, or. x.
7 over root x. So that way, when this one eats this one, now you've got the x minus 4 in the denominator. Good. Now what?
For g of x or for the other h of x?
This one. Just give me one answer that completely works. So
X plus 3.
x plus 3 and that. Wait. Yep, that's right. That works. That's a way. Did anybody have a different way that would have worked? Nico, give me the other way.
H of x would be just the square root of x, or
Square root.
x to the power of 1 over x.
Oh,
Or of 1/2.
oh, getting fancy with me on those powers. I like it. Oh, and then if so, what was g of x?
7 over x plus 3.
Oh, so close. Don't think that works. I'm going to check.
Well, no, if the plus 3 is outside, like.
Okay. But I still don't
Yeah,
think it's
sorry
going to work.
about
I didn't specify that. That's what I
Okay,
have right
okay, I believe you. But I still think something's wrong. I could be wrong. Let me think. So that's going to there. And then that one's going to eat. No, that one's right. That one's right. There's just another way. There's just another way you could do it.
I had that written down.
That was my second.
We're good. And I should have asked you to clarify, that's all. All right. The last way involves the square root being here instead. See if you can figure this out. What if this was the square root of x plus 3? Then what would have had to have happened in the middle?
I couldn't find happened in the middle, you.
I don't know what word I said that sounded like S-I-R-I. Ugh. At least it's better than Alexa, because there's some kids that are actually named Alexa, and I feel bad for them. Not because, it's just that whenever somebody says their name, like, the house wakes up. So, I doubt, well, actually, there's probably some kid somewhere who's named Siri by now.
That's why you make your Alexa respond to something like Amazon.
Can you?
Yeah, you can change the
Oh,
response.
really? So you could, like, call it Mr. Rumpelstiltskin,
It only
or...
has like a few options.
Oh,
There's
okay.
like you could call it like Amazon or Echo or
like-
computer.
yeah.
Okay, all right, cool. All right, so, did you figure it out? Martin thinks he has.
Yeah, I believe it would be in parentheses 7 over square root of x, and outside the parentheses to the power of 2.
Okay, and what if we just square both of them, and you tell me what that is? Okay, I'll do what you said. 7 over square root of x minus 4. Just x? Okay, so square root, so 7 over x. There we go. And then squared, right? And all I was suggesting is that couldn't you just have, could you have said, actually, let's make sure you're right first. So if I put the x minus 4 over there, then x minus 4 is in here, and I get 7 over x minus 4, and it's squared. And then I go take in the square root of it, and I think that is a way that works.
How did
I think he's right.
How did you solve that? Like how do you get to that?
The key to me was you had to think, this is just a tricky one, and, well, I don't know, you should explain it. How did you figure it out?
So basically, I looked at the other one that we had done where the h was just 7 over x, square root of x. And then I realized that since g of x is square root of x, to cancel out that square root, we need to have h of x be squared.
Okay, and we're getting so deep in the weeds now, we're finding the third complicated way. You could have done this one problem. I don't want to lose the forest for the trees. I want to give you one last nice easy one. Are you ready? Let's say I have you get f of g of x, and I say that it was 1 over x minus square root of x. That one's going to be tricky. Not impossible. What? Always start by finding the inside one. What was g of x? Or what could it have been? And let's not try to find 16 different ways to do it. Let's just find a way to do it.
There's one.
Who's got a way? A lot of people have a way. All right. Mr. Rieger, what's your way? Got this? Okay, I'm saying the person's name wrong, so I'm going to just start this one myself. G of x will pull out this right here, 1 over, and then that could be, this will be 1 over x, and then this could be the thing that got pulled out, which is x minus root x. Check me, but I think that works. Does anybody else have the same thing? Okay, good. That's a way. There's probably another way, but one pro tip. Don't just pull out one part of, like one part with the x. If you don't pull out both x's, then it's not gonna work. We've made it, and I want to cut this assignment down to a much more reasonable size. There is a drop box for it, but even if there wasn't, remember, it doesn't mean we can't grade it. Crossing these two off. Crossing these three off. This whole page is more deep than we have to go. So you could have done 14, I know 41, I know you could have handled it, but get to this page for sure, because these involve some thinking. We're going to skip the last two. And the very last page, also really important. So I think you don't need to do that many though, so we'll skip the last two there also. Okay. Get those done. Dropbox it before 8 a.m. tomorrow morning. That's all I got for you for the video for today.